Meeting to order. As you can tell, I've got a small child's voice that's crawled up in my throat. But I will do my best. If I can't keep going, then I will ask my colleagues to step in. I'd like to welcome you all to the Board of Directors meeting for Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, slated for today, February 22nd, 2024. I will suspend with all of the reading relative to you wanting to watch this in video later on. If you're interested, it first means you have no social life, and secondly, it means that you can go to the posted board meeting announcements and find that information. But with that, I'd like to do a roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Director Sailors.
Present.
Director Weber.
Here.
Director Sheets. Director Gould.
Trying to be here.
Director Wood.
Present.
Director Rice is absent. Director Jones.
Here.
Director Costa.
Here.
And Director Clark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We'd like to go ahead and start this meeting with a pledge to the flag. We'd like to ask Director Jones if she'll lead us.
My pleasure, Mr. President. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Before we get going, as I like to do, embarrass my colleagues. Several weeks now, we haven't had a gavel at this dais, and I was making a big deal about it, I guess. And our dear friend to my right spent a good deal of time, and I just wanted to show you the work that this young man has and the talent that he has. First, he made the pad, some loser's name on it, and then the gavel, and then actual pictures of him doing the work. He doesn't trust us, but Bob, thank you very much. Pretty special. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on. Again, if you're interested in the Metro Cable announcement, please look at the information. We'll start tonight's meeting with, I'll entertain a motion relative to the consent items. And I want to make a special point of the consent. Tonight, we're actually recognizing through resolution the retirees from 2021 through 2023. I didn't actually run the numbers, but we're probably talking several thousand years of experience in this institution. And I want that you just ponder that for a minute, that tonight we're officially, adopting a resolution recognizing these men and women for literally the hundreds and hundreds of years of service to this community and to this district specifically. So I just want to take a minute and just kind of think about that and let that kind of settle in our minds, because we do consent without much thought, right? That's why it's on consent. But this is one of those times where we really need to just pause for a minute and think about all these folks and the sacrifices, not only that they made, but their families made as well. We're literally, I think, talking thousands of years. So thank you to all the men and women that are on consent that have retired from this organization in 2021, 2022, and 2023. I will tell you that my signatory pen is worn out this evening, just like my voice. So I appreciate that. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we got a first, second, and a third.
All right. Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Sheets. Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Wood. Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Costa.
Aye.
Director Clark. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll quickly move on to presentation items tonight. We'll start with Chief Mitchell and team. We will start with service delivery update.
We just need to call for public comment. I don't know if we have any, but sorry.
Sorry, Chief, my bad.
No offense.
It's the throat lozenges that have got me spacing out.
Do we have any public comments in the room? None?
If any of the attendees online would like to address the board, please raise your hand and I'll give you the permission to speak. No response.
I think one of these days I'm going to randomly pick people out of the audience for public comment. Some visitors we'll just have you come up and comment. That'd be fun. Chief, my apologies. We're now done with questions and comments from the public. Please
No
proceed.
problem. Thank you, President Gould, directors, Chief House, everybody in the audience and on Zoom. Adam Mitchell, Deputy Chief of Operations, joined tonight with Jeff Fry. Appreciate him being here. As a request from Director Weber a couple of board meetings ago, we're here to present you a service delivery update on first the phase agreement that started back in May of last year, and then move into what the next looks like, and that's where Jeff will pick up and move us from there. So there we go. I will try not to laser anybody in the eyeball. We'll start with that. So just an overview of what we'll talk about tonight. We'll talk about where we started, where we're at, what's next. The last update that you all received on the service delivery status was back in August of last year, so about 6 months ago. Before I jump into it, I would like to say a big thank you. Although I'm standing here as the ops chief, a lot of the information compiled in this report came from all over the district, different branches and divisions. So thank you for that, as well as the fact that we've had extensive conversations with 522's leadership, past, present, and moving into the future. So we continue to work together jointly to make sure that we're doing right and doing this for sustainability for the community, our membership, and the organization as a whole moving forward. So really happy to be here in front of you tonight to present this information. So just as a recap on where we started back last May, there was a special board meeting where this board directed staff to come forward with an incremental change, moving some of our fire department ambulances over to Metro Medic program ambulances. We brought back to the board on the next regular board meeting on May 19th, a number of recommendations that included 3 different phases for consideration. The staff's recommendation was to move forward with both phase 1 and phase 2 at that time, based off of a number of factors, hiring, a number of unknowns when it comes to the budget. Obviously, we were in the middle of moving into a new fiscal year at that time, and just the workload in general. So we wanted to make sure it was an attainable goal over one fiscal year. And obviously, there was a number of qualifiers in there with factors that we just didn't have control over to address as we went forward. So that was done by consensus at that meeting back last May. And then we provided the update, like I mentioned, back in August. After that board meeting in May, interim fire chief at the time, Haverty, came back to all of you and had some one-on-one conversations where the consensus was, let's try to combine some of the phases, phase 1 and phase 2, into one plan and try to get it done faster, which initially we planned to do. So just as another review on what phase 1 and phase 2 contained, it was transitioning 2 of our fire department ambulances over to MMP ambulances, ending the BLS pilot project and using that staffing to assist in staffing up our ALS MMP units that we were transitioning, and then moving 12 firefighters over to the pool. That was phase 1. Phase 2 was a transition to additional fire department ambulances to MMP units, using 6 of those firefighters to move into the pool to help us manage the mandatory overtime and the staff workload, as well as using 6 of those firefighters to move on to an additional first responder unit. Most likely a squad is what we were talking about. Again, I mentioned this before, but both of those were dependent upon our ability to do the hiring, do the training, procure the correct equipment, make sure facilities were available to house the new positions, and obviously the budget to support those. At that time, phase 3 was not supported by consensus of the board, just again, due to what I talked about before, the amount of workload it would take trying to get it done, doing the fiscally responsible thing, and just managing all those things through a fiscal year. So that was where we started. Moving out of that meeting in May, our initial plan for implementation of a combined phase 1 and phase 2 approach was to transition 3 fire department medics over to MMP units. Using those 18 firefighters, we were going to move 12 of them to the staffing pool or have 4 per shift. And then 6 of those firefighters were going to staff a new squad. And then we also talked with leadership, 522 leadership at the time, about moving some of our Metro Medic program units that were the hours of staffing or the hours within how they work were different than the 56-hour work week. They worked 12-hour shifts versus the 48.96. And so if we looked at where our highest unit hour utilization was across the district, the FDMs at Station 21 and 61 were identified as high workload, high time on task, impacts to members. And so we decided to switch a couple of MMP units and fire department ambulances to address that, to allow some more time for crew changeover in the MMP program to decrease the workload, as well as allow those members on those FDMs that are also some of our newest members to get some more time for training and things like that. So that was the initial plan to start. And I think moving into what the next slide is where we ended up at with this and this will be the theme throughout, at least the talking points here in this fiscal year, is the adaptability to making changes to these plans was a critical factor. And I know Chief House, and you've probably heard it a number of times, it comes down to how many people we can get in the field after all of those things are addressed. And so that adaptability is a critical factor when we plan this during this time now and then moving into the future. We just have to be in front of being committed to not decreasing our level of service delivery, making sure we have enough transport units out there and ALS levels of care are maintained. So because of some of those factors that are out of our control, we needed an update to that plan. So on August 8th of last year, we had to update the actual staffing plan. We met with 522 leadership and talked about the fact we just didn't get the people that we had wanted. Moving through the MOU process and hoping for more hiring ability, we didn't get there. And so we ended up decreasing the number of FDMs to transition from 3 down to 2. And then we used those 12 firefighters to staff firefighter positions that were vacant. The intent was to staff a pool, which just based off of vacancies and retirements and promotions, we never actually got to a pool, which I'll talk about here where we're at moving into the next, which is important because that's where we all want to be. We want that pool available to decrease that impact on our members. We did still continue to move forward on moving those 2 FDM and MMP units and flopping them. And then we wanted to continue to evaluate the staffing in that MMP program and the hiring processes to pursue that additional phase 2 implementation of a squad. So after that last update in August, here is a slide that generally gives you where we ended up being able to find some successes, which is a good thing. We transitioned FDM 105 over to MMP 105. FDM 53 transitioned to MMP 53, and then we did those flip-flops of those FDMs and MMPs for the workload we talked about on the 3rd of September, right around Labor Day. And then moving forward into November of last year, we used the fourth firefighter positions on the SAFER grant from Engine 61 and 63 to implement Squad 61, so that we were able to find a efficiency there and move those folks over to start and getting another squad into the system in addition to Squad 24. And then we placed Decon 110 into service using that SAFER position from Engine 41 that was a 4th firefighter, again, to support the priority of the carcinogen exposure reduction and the health of our members and really reducing that exposure to cancer as an initial step, with more coming and to be able to do that quickly and address that moving into the next few months to do more on that end. And then again, we're continuing that recruitment, retention, and hiring effort to stabilize the staffing and bring more folks into the organization, which a consistent theme is this is about people and being able to get them here and get them out in the field to provide the service to the community. So there's a couple of other additional changes due to the transition and those movements that we've been able to do to support our members in the community. The supervision changed over from EMS 24 to the station captains, which helps with the chain of command. It also helps knocking down silos if they existed within the membership and making sure that we are really supportive of the one team of Metro Fire. They were working in fire stations, and that's how that works, and we should be committed to that. And so we were able to do that. We were able to change the time card process to find some efficiencies there. So thanks to finance and a number of folks working through that to figure out how to make that work. Telestaff roster was updated. And so then the switching of the locations, like I mentioned before, was giving those busier medics an opportunity to do some of the things we already talked about. And I think another critical factor that we need to consider, that we did consider then, and we will now consider moving into what next looks like, is that we sat down and met with 522 to agree to a contingency plan. Again, to make sure that we are in a good position of factors that we don't foresee or that are not in our control, that if we have any rapid change in staffing levels of our MMP program, we didn't lose any ability to transport and we are able to maintain that ALS level of service that we all want to be dedicated to. So no detriment to the community that we are here to serve. It also, I didn't mention before, but moving those units, the FDM units to Station 29 and 66 allows us in a situation where we have a large scale fire emergency, where we get a request from the state to respond to an emergency. It gave us some flexibility as though both of those stations either have an OAS unit or they are on our strike team list to deploy quickly to those emergencies with that fourth member that's part of our CFA and Master Mutual Aid agreements. So some additional ancillary benefits there. So where we're at today, that's where we've been, where we're at today. So this sheet has a lot of numbers on it. I think Laura Kelly's here somewhere. I saw her walk in. There she is sitting behind. Okay. I just want to say thank you to her because she maintains this document to make sure that we have tracking on where we're at with our numbers. And again, there's a lot of numbers on here. It covers all the ranks from battalion chief to firefighter. If the two highlighted areas I want us to focus on is the one there in the middle, which is total firefighters in the pool, we currently have 0. And that's something we want to keep as a high priority to address that workload and maintaining our ability to staff units, but also to give us the reduction in mandatory overtime and have people be at work when they want to be and not be at work more than they want to be. So that's what we need to address. And what this next looks like is going to help us get there. We also, at the levels we're currently at having those 240 firefighter positions filled, and we have 246 seats, we are not at fully staffed in the firefighter rank, and there's -6 right now. So we need to recognize that as a problem and that we're addressing. Right above that -6 number, the yellow arrow on the right is another -6 in the engineer rank. So we have a engineer's test that's scheduled coming up here this spring in May to address that. We have an anticipated captain's retirement happening next month. And so the next person on the captain's list is an engineer. So by the time we get to what next looks like, we will have -7 engineers and -6 firefighters. So to address those issues, what are we doing? We have the Fire Academy there. You see 24-1 currently has 14 firefighter paramedic recruits in it. We're expecting them to graduate sometime midway, but based off of how we deploy those folks, they go out on a ride-along status in our fire stations for up to 10 shifts to make sure that they have all the tools for success for their career. And so they don't actually count towards staffing till later in June. So even though they graduate in May, they don't actually help us address the shortage of the firefighters per se until that midpoint in June. And then again, we want to focus on continuing to increase the members in the firefighter pool to reduce mandatory overtime. And we do have a fire academy that is right now planned for the fall of this year. So that will again bring us more help moving into the fall. Those factors are, the hiring and the recruitment and retention that we've talked about a lot. We're doing a better job at that. And I know, again, I'm the operations chief talking about that. It falls in another area of the district, but we have done a lot to address that. I will mention here on the next slide something that really puts us in a good position for that moving forward. Again, this is contingent upon whether or not these numbers that we're anticipating actually come through. We're being cautiously optimistic, but I'll be upfront with you that historically it doesn't quite get to where that exactly we hope that it gets to. We could cross our fingers and hope that changes, but we need to be prepared for that. That's how many people are actually here. So our current totals, academy and hiring process impacts of where we're at. In the MMP rank right now, we have 49 folks, 26 paramedics and 7 EMTs. That allows us to deploy 7 MMP ambulances for 24 hours a day. So that number is right at where we need to be for maintaining just barely being staffed at a sustainable level where there's no openings. So we're right there right now. It's not necessarily ideal. We try to get out of the 7 positions it takes to staff each of those 7 ambulances. We try to hire 4 paramedics for every 3 EMTs, just because that ALS level of care factor that we're trying to maintain. So our plan for the upcoming academy that starts in the middle of next month, we are hiring or anticipating to hire 27 recruit MMPs, which will be a very sizable class. That's a very good number to start with. And again, I'm looking back here at HR and their work. Melissa Maddox is here and what they've done to put us in that position to be able to do that. There's some decisions that were made to help capture as many folks as we could into that academy, knowing that we want to get there sooner rather than later and address the problem. And again, I think it's important to recognize our current and anticipated folks that are currently EMTs are working through the transition to maintaining or attaining that level of paramedic certification, which is fantastic news. But we still need to do some more there on trying to figure out how we get more paramedics. Our folks that we have right now that are working here are still working through that, and we're really proud of them. And again, those folks that we're hiring are also anticipated, which will help bring those paramedic numbers up even further. But the outcome from that is in May, when those folks graduate and they start counting as staffing, that we'll now have an adequate number of MMP members in the program working for us that will give us a capacity to transition and get to that phase two, the combined phases, now phase two before, to be able to look at transitioning some more FDMs, but also for the first time, potentially, knock on melamine or whatever this is, that stays there, and then we will have a pool in the MMP program. So what's next? Additional plan changes if for this fiscal year, again, there's the big red if, as long as we get the numbers to stay, this is the most ideal situation we can be at, and we'll adapt if we need to from here. With those hiring and the 14 members in our current fire academy, we'll be able to entertain transitioning 2 more FDMs into MMP ambulances, moving that total MMPs up to 9 and staffing a pool. And then also reducing the FDMs down from 13 down to 11, which gives us 12 firefighter positions to do some other things with, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that gets us to that actual 4 MMP and 4 FDMs that we called for in that first phase approach that you all by consensus supported. And then what that will do is allow us to use 6 of those firefighters to staff an additional squad. So that gets us the squad that we also wanted to get to. It reduces the existing firefighter vacancies down to 0, which we were at -6. And also, as the 14-2 folks come online in June, towards July 1st, gives us, for the first time in a number of years, the ability to actually have some firefighters in the pool. So really, really good news is do a lot of hard work on a lot of fronts to get there. Fingers crossed, that's where we're going, and that's what we're getting to next. One of the questions that I've heard, or at least could anticipate, is the timeline for when we can implement this based off of graduation and ride-along time for our MMP members being in mid-May. It looks like we'll be able to start, again, based off the numbers of folks that actually graduate and count, looks like we'll be able to start transitioning some of those MMP unit FDMs and MMPs and putting that squad in mid-May, the middle of May. May 13th is the day that we are anticipating those folks being ready for staffing. That will allow us to move forward. One of the things that will come with that, if we do that in mid-May, is that the firefighters will go in when we promote for those 7 engineers. There will be about 3 weeks in there during vacation season that could get pretty tight. And I know, I think Director Botava is in the back there. We have a meeting. We had a meeting scheduled today, just due to some other things couldn't get there. We're going to have a meeting next week and talk about what that'll look like, because there would be some potential impacts to firefighters for a few weeks, waiting for those fire academy recruits to graduate and count as staffing. But, you know, looking at positive versus negative service delivery, we're gonna figure that out. So there's that. The actual locations of where we put those units and which units we're transitioning kind of goes into what Jeff is going to talk about, and what we've been talking about for a lot of months is using the standards of cover document and looking at the data for reliability and how much time people are spending on scenes and where the gaps are. That's how we're going to decide where to actually put the squad, as well as what units we're going to transition. So we'll use the data to drive those decisions, which is a really positive thing. I know there's a lot of work that went into it. Might as well use that information to best serve the public, right? So with all that being said, again, if those numbers stay true, there's the updated chart, which is a very positive. You see all the zeros there on the right to the big yellow arrow. The vacancies are all at 0. And again, that yellow arrow on the bottom, towards the bottom, gives us 7 people in the pool for the first time for many years. Just for reference, with 7 people in the pool, you know, we'll have 2.33 3 with a line over the second 3 firefighters per shift in the pool. The number of overtime shifts that we had, filling of vacancies back in June and July of last year were 22 spots a day. Of those, there were an average of 4 per day that were mandatory callback. So we're not quite there on covering historical numbers on pool, but we will reduce it by at least anticipated half, which is better than nothing. We'll take it. We want to be better though. So important note there. Also with that MMP pool, if everybody graduates, you can see the numbers there, 37 and 39 gives us more than the 63 that would be required to staff up 9 MMP units for 24 hours a day, giving us the pool there, which gives us, again, the ability to decrease mandatory overtime throughout the summer season in the MMP rank, but also put us in a position for Fire Academy 24-2 in the fall, where we get a number of folks that transition over to the Fire Academy, where we historically would seen a big dip in the MMP ranks to maintain that service. It allows us to be proactive and absorb that so that we don't scramble to find people at the last minute. We do still have MMP academies planned regularly to try to maintain that staffing and increase it. So that's really great news. That puts us in a really good proactive position moving into next year. And then that contingency plan will be part of this. We just don't know what we don't know. And part of what our meeting will be with 522 is to go about figuring out if the unknown or the unexpected happens, having a plan to not have any service delivery decreases to the public. So now Jeff's been waiting patiently behind me. He's going to talk about the next few slides to talk about what's next. And it's going to sound very familiar, like a standards of cover document and strategic plan, but I don't want to steal Jeff's thunder more than I already have. So he's using technology. I used old technology. So if his dies, I'll be standing right behind him. I can handle it.
He can steal all the thunder he wants. So again, just picking up where Chief Mitchell left off, if you remember when we were having these discussions about this time last year, we understand the phase approach was what we had to do to get something moving now. But really that was an effort to buy me time to finalize the standard of cover and get to this new process. So I believe at that point in time, I asked the board for 16 months. So I think we're on track with everything that we said we are going to do. And I would like to take you a little bit through that and what we're thinking about, really focusing tonight on a matter of process and how that fits into a bigger plan leading up to the preliminary budgeting process. So just want to take you through some of these details. Really starting with the board level initiatives and outcomes, getting into some project goals, and then talking about really the process. So how do we take the standard of cover, use that to form the service delivery plan, and then that informs preliminary budget. So I do want to start, this is the last piece really from the service delivery element where the board told us where you want us to focus. And in regard to this, I want you to focus on the outcomes there. Those outcomes are really asking for some kind of process and consideration of best use of people and things, right? I kind of combined all of that, and the word that really stood out to me here was the ROI piece, which is looking at our total service delivery. How do we make the best choices? I think that's what the board was asking, to get the best use out of limited resources. So I've interpreted that return on investment as a cost benefit analysis, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So one of the things I want to talk to the board is we finished the standard of cover, has lots of great information, but the question I got after that was, well, this is great, but it's policy. It's kind of stops at all the data and the information. We want to know what's next. We want to know what's better. So I wanted to draw a distinction between that document and a plan, because the plan needs to have operational buy-in, and it has to have that reality check on how is this really going to work. So I very distinctly want to create two separate processes from standard of cover and service delivery. And that leads us to this piece. I think you probably remember this. The board did ask us for some objectives and then outcomes. I think I gave the board this at the workshop that we had on the Saturday. Santiago, if you don't mind zooming into the output there so we can see that. The three outputs, you can see the strategic document was the standard of cover. That is done. It is a matter of policy, but the output from that was three things. And I want to make sure I get this right. So the three things were, number one, the operational plan, now calling that the service delivery plan. And it's made up of a couple of pieces, which is the reliability piece that we've talked a lot about, which is a measure of first responder availability. And then the second piece is the ambulance time on task, reducing workload to create that balance. So that's the two pieces for that first output there. Again, that needs to fit into our hiring process and our CIP process because there are elements there as well. The second part there is the station master plan. The station master plan. We had a couple of holes in it. We knew what was happening in growth areas. We didn't have a really good handle on infill stations. And what were the calls that were outside of our standardized response times? How many calls that were? And then using the cost benefit analysis, what is it going to cost us to serve those calls? And then the third component there is creating this new service standard. We've talked a lot about the dense urban standard, which is really what's affecting our call volume and the workload. So we want to think about what are ways we can start to address this and be prepared for it as we move from a rural standard up to this dense urban standard. How do we get ahead of this equation? How are we planning 5 years out instead of being in this reactive mode? So all of these elements have been combined in this service delivery plan. I have a wonderful spreadsheet. I'm really excited about it. Not going to bore with you today, but we are getting there. So now just focusing on process. That really catches the board up to speed on where we're at. Now, how do we reassemble the service delivery team as it was originally conceptualized, talk about these things, agree on a path forward, and then come to the board with solutions that meet all those criteria we just talked about. So we had that kickoff meeting January 22nd. I'm glad I included it in the slide. It existed of the executive staff, the command staff, the 522E board, and we included the fleet manager because one of the big constraints in this is access to vehicles. So we really needed that input on how do we start to solve some of these issues. We agreed on the data. We agreed that the standard of cover is accurate. It reflects what we have and that it's a good reference document to start to get to better. And we agree on the end goals. What does better look like? We all know what we want. Now the challenge is how do we get there? So we're having follow-up meetings. The follow-up meetings are good. I think it's an opportunity for me to sit with the ops folks and talk about how we wrote the standard of cover and how it's used as a tool to make better decisions. And they've really honed in on that and are really thinking about scenarios that they experienced in the field and how that we can conceptualize these different things. The conversations over the last 3 weeks are fantastic, including one that we had yesterday. Just totally happy with where the group is going. Out of that group, we expect some recommendations that we can evaluate in all of these areas. And again, this is the planning front side with the operational reality backside to come to that best decision. Okay, so when I took the standard of cover and all the board adopted policies and just started measuring the calls we didn't get to as specified and put it a dollar amount, this is what I came up with. This is really for me and something that I want to address later on as external engagement and an education piece for communities, but also lawmakers about the real effect of what's happening in our world and how we really can't get to this level of service that we want to get to. For the operational perspective, we quickly got to, okay, this isn't real. Let's set it aside. Where can we focus on 3 to 5 projects, areas that are truly cost effective that we can make a difference to the district today? So again, this is just kind of a planning exercise, but I do want to make the board aware. Our spreadsheet is broken up in 3 categories. Master plan projects, 11 at 170 million, very rough numbers, really not important since we're not going to develop this anymore. We're going to focus on solutions. Here's the cost benefit analysis I was telling you about. The range is $4,000 per call to $6.2 million per call. And I'll give you an example. The 6.2 is kind of funny, right? We have a brand new development area called Rio Del Oro, just east of it here a bit, that's starting to build. We had 3 calls in that area that were outside the first due of an existing apparatus. The cost to provide service that call would be around $18 million. So you can quickly say, okay, cost benefit, $6.2 million calls ridiculous. We can throw that one out the window. We're very focused on the high call volume impacts, reasonable budget amounts. So we're thinking up to $10,000 per call is reasonable based on what we're trying to do if it improves service. And then that takes all of these hypothetical scenarios and reduces it down very quickly to a concentrated conversation about better. So again, reliability is focused on those first due apparatus. And then we also have the ambulance workload there. So again, you've heard me say this a couple of times. Now the group is very focused on 3 to 5 project areas and developing alternatives that are realistic based on all those factors you heard Chief Mitchell talk about. The one thing that I've really heard is we do need different ways to get to better. One solution isn't going to work. And I think you said alternatives or
Yeah,
I
it's
forgot
just-
the word.
It's different than what we've been doing when we talk engines, trucks, ambulances, now squads. That's what we're talking about, is looking at different from that. MIH, expanding nurse navigation, mopeds, motorcycles. So all of those things, and we don't want to get stuck into what we're currently doing because the community based off 50 year ago plan that's not what we're doing now. So we need to be very open to what it is going to be asked for is currently, and then down the road, 5, 10, 20 years. And that's what we're talking about.
So we need options on the hiring front. We need options on the vehicle front. So we have these broad things, and I included it there. Very broadly, we're talking about potential mix of ALS and BLS squads and ambulances, utilizing smaller vehicles because engines are very hard to get, and potential peak time units. That's what we know today. That's where the conversation is. We've asked the ops team through these continued discussions, we'll bring back to the bigger service delivery team to talk about what this means as a recommendation for the board. So every time planning and development is front of here, we always refer to this slide. But again, what we're trying to do is create a connection between service delivery. We want this information, these solutions we're talking about have to fit into a bigger picture. So again, when we're talking about a staffing plan, there are other staffing needs. We're talking about ops, but there are admin positions and other things. There are also capital projects that will have to happen for this to work. So all of that information has to be then communicated and included in these different pieces for consideration. And all of that comes to the board as a preliminary budget package for approval. I think I want to treat this like we're doing CIP. So we will, once we hit milestones and we have more information to share with the board, we'll do shorter presentations to say, okay, we had 30 projects, we're down to 5. Okay, with 5, we had 15 scenarios, we're down to 3. And this is what we're recommending as a part of preliminary budget. So that is the process that is going on today. I think we're on track for what we told the board. And with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board? Yeah, Bob, go ahead. Sure.
I just want to thank you very much for the presentation. All of the back work that has been happening on this. I appreciate very much being updated. It gives me a better sense of where we are, where we're going, all the moving parts that you folks are putting into this. So thank you very, very much for that. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Other questions from board members? Gentlemen, I think this is a great example of the collective work that's happening at multiple different levels within the organization. Kudos to all of you that participate. I think this is really high-end conversations that are going on in a fire department. So I'm really proud that you guys are being so collegial and you've got all the stakeholders involved in those kind of things. So I think this is going to work out well for us, so thank you very much for all the effort. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on with presentation items. We're going to now hear about our audits, something we're pretty proud of. I think we've got a decade or more of like badges or trophies or plaques or something. So
That's coming in a subsequent item tonight. Real briefly, thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, Fire Chief House, and colleagues and members of the public. I'm going to provide a brief introduction and to this presentation item before I turn it over to our audit partner. This is Nitish Desai, who's from Badawi and Associates, who's our auditor for the district. And briefly, the annual financial report is your checkup on the fiscal condition of the district. After the budget year is closed, it examines our financial condition and helps us forecast revenues and expenditures for future fiscal plans. This presentation follows our annual practice and finance and audit policy, which directs the annual audited financial statements with the independent auditor to be reviewed in open session. So we're fulfilling that tonight. Under that policy, I'll just read for a moment. This review shall include a discussion of significant issues regarding accounting principles, practices, audit findings, disclosures, judgments, and any other requirements under accounting standards and rules, end quote. Badawi and Associates has issued an unmodified opinion, also known as a clean opinion, with our financial statements. And this year's ACFR will be submitted to the Government Officers Finance Association of America. There's the award for the Certificate of Excellence Award, which we have received for each of the last 9 years. Finally, I want to recognize that the ACFR is prepared by the Finance Division with support from district divisions and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for state and local governments. With that, I will turn it over to our auditor. Thank you.
Thank you.
who's got the clicker?
Right, thank you. Board, I have a short presentation on the district's audit covering the engagement team, the deliverables, areas of primary emphasis, our auditor's report, few slides on the financial statements, required communications we need to make as the auditors, and then I'm happy to answer any questions and conclude. In terms of the engagement team, so actually Ahmed Badawi was the audit partner. I was the quality control reviewer. Ahmed couldn't make this meeting, so I'm in his place. But in addition, we had an IT specialist who looked at IT controls over financial reporting. Our audit manager was Salah Yassin, and we had 3 staff that were helping in the audit. In terms of deliverables and scope of our audit, so we've issued an independent auditor's report on the district's financial statements. With that, we also issue a report, it's referred to as the Yellow Book report, which is the internal control over financial reporting on compliance and other matters. And also we issue a single audit this year, which is the 3rd bullet point where we audit your major federal programs. We also look at your GAN limit or appropriations limit and do agreed upon procedures on that schedule. And lastly, we issued our communication to the board, which will be covering all the items that are in the required communication slide. In terms of areas of primary audit risk, our audit is performed on a risk-based approach. We do a risk assessment and identify significant risks and address them by applying audit procedures. These are the 3 most significant audit risks: management override of internal controls, improper revenue recognition, and pension and OPEB. These are not necessarily unique to the district. The first 2 exist in all audits, reviewing whether management followed their internal control policies. We look at journal entries, incorporate unpredictability in our audit, and we look at if there were any unusual business transactions. Excuse me. We also confirm a lot of your revenues, and we pay closer attention to your pension and OPEB accounting. In terms of our auditor's report, so as mentioned, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. And with that, that means that your financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. Significant accounting policies have been applied consistently. Your estimates in the financial statements are reasonable, and the disclosures are clear and transparent. We also issued our agreed upon procedures on the GAN limit or the appropriations limit schedule. And with that, we had no exceptions noted. Covering the financial statements, this is a slide covering the assets of the district over the past 3 years. You'll see that over the past 3 years, there weren't any significant increases other than the deferred outflow of resources, which is mainly in relation to your pension plan, where there are timing differences, where deferrals are made and recognized in expense over an amortization period. This is a slide covering your liabilities. So you can see some unusual trends with your pension liability, and that's mainly as a result of gains and losses that CalPERS incurred in 2021 and 2022. So the net pension liability has a 1-year lag. So even though you're presenting the 2023 financial statements, the net pension liability is actually as of 2022. That's done for reasons to make sure that the plan assets were audited. And so audited numbers are in your financial statements. With that swing in the net pension liability, that's what's impacting the deferred inflow of resources. So these large increases or decreases create deferrals, which then get amortized. In addition, the discount rate used to measure the pension liability was decreased this year. So that also created an increase in your liability. This is just your net position over the past 3 years, which is your assets minus your liabilities. This is classified into 3 categories: your amounts invested in capital assets, restricted amounts, and then your unrestricted amounts. Your unrestricted amount is in a big deficit, which is not unusual because a large part is a result of your long-term liabilities for pension and OPEB. Excuse me. This is a slide comparing your net cost of service to tax revenues. So this looks at your total expenses of the district, net of any program revenues such as fees, grants, and comparing that to your tax revenues, which are meant to fund those services. So you just look at it over a trend to see if there's any issues, whether there's sufficient taxes or not. And it's something that you probably need to look at over a long period, not necessarily just 1 year at a time, just to see if there is a problem, but no issues there. This is a slide on the general fund. This is referred to as expenditure coverage, where we look at your unrestricted fund balance, compare that to your expenditures, and see in the unlikely situation, if you have no revenues, how many months would you be able to operate? That the GFOA recommends no less than 2 months, and the district has about 3 to 2 months of fund balance there, which is within the recommendation. Just a few slides on pension and OPEB. This is a slide to demonstrate the sensitivity of the net pension liability discount rate, which is a disclosure in your financial statements. So you can see that with a 1% increase or 1% decrease in the discount rate, the net pension liability could be drastically different. Not that one number is more accurate than the other number. The actuary has selected the appropriate discount rate. It's just to give you an idea of what that number could be so you can make appropriate decisions. Now, similarly, there's a sensitivity disclosure for OPEB in your financial statements. Not as drastic of a swing here, because when you look at your pension that you pay to a retiree versus what premium you're paying for health, it's drastically different over the annual period. So the impact is not as great. Just going over required communications. So this is a slide clarifying our responsibilities as auditors versus management's responsibilities. Our responsibility is to opine on the financial statements. So we look at internal controls of financial reporting, the tone at the top, evaluate compliance with laws and regulations, review the financial statements, and communicate the results of the audit. Management are responsible for the financial statements, implementing internal controls, providing us with the documents, adjusting the financial statements for errors, and informing us of any fraud, complying with laws and regulations, and to take corrective action if we do have audit findings. Our responsibility includes maintaining our independence as auditors. So we follow rules set by the AICPA and the state board. Those rules restrict us from acting as management and other things. There are no issues in timing of the audit. In terms of significant estimates, your pension and OPEB plan, large estimates. Other estimates include depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation. With regards to difficulties encountered in the audit, significant audit adjustments, deficiencies in internal control, there were no matters to report, and we believe that there were no risks or significant risks or exposures were identified. As part of the audit, we obtain a representation letter where management represents to us that they've provided us with accurate documentation, and there's nothing else we need to be aware of before we sign our report. And there were no issues regarding material incentives or events and conditions. As part of our audit, we do an evaluation of financial condition to see whether the district would operate and will be here within the years. So this would only be reported when you have a very bad financial condition, negative fund balance, and things like that, which the district is far from that situation. And that concludes presentation. I have Ahmed Badawi's email there in case you have questions for him. He's primarily responsible for the audit.
You're standing there, you're gonna get the questions. Hold on. Any colleagues have questions? Go ahead.
And it is absolutely incredible. I know that we're confident when we have an auditor come in and do our, auditing our finances, because the organization is very fiscally responsible, and it's really, every year when we say we're getting these awards, it is really amazing. So just want to thank you and your company for the certificate, and you successfully brought me back to post-traumatic stress when I was getting my MBA.
Any other questions? Following my colleague, I think this is one of the richest board meetings that we have, when our team presents to us a clean audit finding. There's a lot of special independent districts that suffer from unclean documents. And so if you had anything to do with the development of this audit, you developed work that then was fed to the auditors. Would you please stand? Come on. And we have a lot of people come up here and get a lot of kudos. But folks, you save our biscuits, right? Because you do the work that we have an actual oath that we take as elected officials that say that we will make sure that this district stays solvent. So you're helping us. I know for me personally, I am so proud of the work that all of you do standing today, because you tell the citizens that when they pay their taxes, it's safe and it's used appropriately and it's not being taken advantage of. And that comes from all of your work. I couldn't do this stuff for 2 minutes. My head would explode. But thank you very much for that. Kudos to all of you for the work that you're doing to keep this district in such a fine, sound financial shape. And I think you should be proud. I'm hearing that we're going to get this is a slam dunk, right? The award's going to come. How could it not?
We'll find out.
Yeah, it's a done deal. It's a done deal. So anyway, thank you, sir. No other questions? Thank you to all of you for your hard work. Okay, with that wonderful presentation item, I think we will start with action items. We have an action item adopting a resolution for non-safety, and I think the next 2 or 3 action items come from you, Miss Melissa, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Good
you.
evening, directors, Chief House. I'm Melissa Maddox, the HR manager here at Metro Fire. This will be obviously way less complicated than all the other presentations we've seen tonight. So the first resolution that I have, we're here to ask for authorization of the revisions to the safety unrepresented resolution and also the non-safety unrepresented resolutions. Basically with the safety resolution, the only change is the addition of the wage adjustment that's effective January 1st of 2025. That was met and conferred on and negotiated by 522. The fire chief has generally extended that out, onto the unrepresented contracts to make all of the pay raises equal for all employees. The changes to the non-safety resolution was mostly cleanup. In section 1 of that non-safety resolution, there was some name changes, some position movements that had happened over the last year from various things, reclassifications, that kind of thing. So it was more of a cleanup situation. And then along with the wage adjustment that's effective January 1st of 2025. And then in section 16 of the non-safety resolution was adding language to be consistent with all the other contracts regarding probationary periods for new employees and for newly promoted employees. That has always been the practice, is that everyone serves a 1-year probation when you're hired here. But we realized it wasn't necessarily spelled out in that resolution. So we just literally took the language from the other contracts and put it in the non-safety just to make it absolutely clear. So with those two, we're just asking for, we're recommending adoption of the 2 revised resolutions for the non-safety and the safety unrepresented confidential employees. It's a lot longer than that, but I'll not make it so complicated.
Any questions before we take roll? You know who doesn't have a 1-year probation? The
Me.
knuckleheads up here. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and let's take these one at a time. So action item number 1 is adopt resolution for non-safety as it's been described by our HR manager. Do I hear any questions? I see a motion from Director Weber. Can I get a second? We have a second. Please call the roll, madam.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Sheets, Director Gould,
Aye.
Director Wood, Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The next item on action is adopt a resolution, a side letter for the administrative support personnel, unrepresented confidential employees, and senior safety management employees.
Yeah, that one, there was a typo. I made a typo on the agenda. It is just the first adopt resolution side letter for administrative support personnel, period. And the recommendation is correct, and so is the reso. I don't know if you have anything to say on it.
There's first two resolutions of the unrepresented. There's the non-safety unrepresented resolution and the safety unrepresented resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need
I think-
another motion on
Yes.
item number 1 before we move to number 2. Clark, and who was the second? Okay, thank you. And I'll do roll. Sailors,
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Sheets, Gould, Wood.
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Costa.
Aye.
Clark. Thank you. Motion passes on both of those.
Okay, so now.
And then we move to number 2. Yes,
Just trying to stay ahead of it. So
yes, the admin
Uh,
support
Did
personnel.
we get it? We did, didn't we? We got a motion from him.
Yes.
We get a second? Was that you? Ted?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got a first and a second on action item number 2. No typos, no, we're good. As read. Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Sheets, Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Wood.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Costa.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. We'll move on to reports. Please follow my lead. I have no report. If you could, just keep these fairly short. We do have an esteemed attorney in the room, actually 2. But one of them's charging us big money. 3. And any secret attorneys around here. So we need to move this along to get to closed session if you don't mind. So with that, I finished my report. Chief, you're up.
I will keep mine short. It's all about our people tonight, as we've seen here tonight.
That's kind of
So,
report.
in this time of need of paramedics, I want to really congratulate a firefighter EMT who on his own during probation successfully graduated and is now a paramedic. That is firefighter Brandon Mason. His recent promotion was effective February 8th. I'd also like to welcome 3 new employees into our organization. First is Nicholas Smeaton, who was hired as the position of fire mechanic in the fleet division effective February 13th. Jasmine Vu, and she is here tonight. She's going to give you a really quick introduction of herself and say hello for an official welcoming. That is Jasmine Vu, hired for the position of office technician in the Community Risk Reduction Division effective February 14th. And Maria Palma, who is also here tonight for a quick introduction, hired to the position of office technician in the Logistics Division effective January 29th. If I could get Maria and Jasmine up to the podium and say hi, please.
This looks like it was voluntold.
Hello, Mr. Chair. I don't think this is what you were expecting when you tried to call on us as members of the public.
Guilty.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tautini Jasmine Vu, known as Jasmine. I am the newest office technician for the Community Risk Reduction Department under Chief Law and Chief Nygren, but you already knew that because Chief House just told you. I am in my 2nd week here, and already I can see that this is truly an extraordinary place to work. I have felt incredibly welcomed by everyone here, and I am very excited to serve you all. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria. I am the office technician for the Logistics Division. Previously to this, I've never worked in a fire district, so I'm fairly new to all of this, but I'm actually very excited. I really love the family here. This is pretty much what I envisioned coming in, and I've heard a lot of good. I do plan to be here for many years. Hopefully I can retire here, and I'm just very excited to see where a career with SAC Metro takes me in the future. And I am also very excited to continue seeing all of your faces for many years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both and welcome. And last, I'd like to welcome and introduce you officially to Coach Patrick. He's a coach that I had the opportunity when I was in the training division to hire under my tenure there, but he has really taken the ball and ran with some things that's sensitive to us with wellness outside of his normal coaching duties underneath the other part of his division, which is health and wellness. As you know, cancer screening and alike is a very sensitive topic now. We want to be very proactive. Before he comes to the podium though, and he's going to talk about what was happening over the weekend with absolutely zero cost to the district. When we talk about collaboration and you asked me to reestablish some outside relationships, this is an example of the priority of doing that to zero cost to the district. The outcome I'll save for him to report out on, but it was amazing for me to hear this. While this was going on, when we talk about true collaboration, myself, Pete Votava, and Captain Matt Cole, our Battalion Chief Matt Cole, were all down in Phoenix looking at their wellness center. I think we were all pleasantly surprised, and they had some good transitions. So the timing couldn't have been better. They transitioned a captain that was promoted to, that was in the wellness center about 15 years ago to battalion chief, and she just recently got promoted to division chief who oversees the wellness center. I made a phone call to their fire chief on Monday to not surprise him that our fire chief was going to be there. Courtesy, right? He informed me that at the same time at our visit, they had just got out of a contract that was 20 plus years old with their providers. So they had a new contract. So we were able to talk about their RFP and what they identified as efficiencies, increasing efficiencies for today's tenure in wellness. At the same time, they had a new contract that was 20 years old and hired a new clinician for their peer support. opportunities and mental health. So we also were able to have a very in-depth conversation on that. The realization that I think Pete would probably talk about when he gives his report is that we were pleasantly surprised. Although it looks different, it's hot in Phoenix, so it does. What we are doing here is equal to, if not greater than, what they brag about, their wellness center. It's just done differently. The conversation evolved, though, is where we found true efficiencies to have a conversation where she politely closed the door and said, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And if anybody knows me, I love those type of conversations. So she educated us with her new tenure down there on some areas that we had asked about. If you had to do this in our shoes, where would you focus some money today? We were able to have that direct conversation, which enabled the collaboration of the pocket of money, the 300,000 that was in the MOU that is going, has went to 522, where we can collaboratively work together for some advancement. I believe Pete's going to talk about that tonight, so I won't steal his thunder, but I want to also respect what you asked me to do is shorten this up. So I'm going to give the microphone over to Coach, let you introduce yourself, but please really highlight the success of this weekend that cost the agency nothing other than time.
Well, thank you for having me, board members, chief, distinguished guests, and the rest of you in the back. First off, I want to ask President Gould, the throat lozenges that are making you loopy, do you have any more? I'll take a couple. Okay, very good. So my name, like Chief said, my name is Patrick Gallagher. I'm the Health and Wellness Manager here at Metro Fire. I've been here roughly going on 6 years. When I started, I was the Health and Fitness Manager. And when the reclassification came, the topic was, from my time here, I noticed the need, the fitness side. I will tell you, Metro Fire is a very fit district. Sure, there's some outliers and there's some things we can always do. But when it comes to fitness, we pretty much are spot on. Our members are above average when I compare them to the rest around the state and especially out of the state. What was lacking was really, like everything we're seeing, is the wellness side. And when we talk about wellness, that's a holistic approach to their bodies, the whole membership, and how we take care of that. So not just fitness, but also rest, recovery, nutrition, mental wellness, peer support, all those things that we all know about. And so that was the main drive for the change in the name to wellness. And I've taken that on full throttle. And so to date, we have many things going on, but the one I did want to talk about that Chief alluded to was the skin cancer. The 2 days we had the skin cancer screenings, and we started on Saturday, 9 a.m. When I first put it out, I put out 48 spots. Those 48 spots got filled, and I do believe right around 20 minutes from the email. And so then I had to put out another email saying, okay, let's set up another round. And then I brought in a third dermatologist. And so we got up to 150, and 140 showed up. And I was very happy with that. The foundation is called the Anthony Valenta Foundation in collaboration with CalDerm. And CalDerm is a local group of dermatologists that have partnered with the Andy Valenta Foundation, as well as the Firefighter Cancer Support Network. They brought their folks in, and it was just such a well-oiled machine that they came in, they set up the dermatologists. What was nice about the dermatologists is that they were all from different, one from Kaiser, one from Sutter. I'm not sure where the third one was from. So when it came time to get the results, we, like, personally, I had the screen done, and the gal from Kaiser was there, and I got her information, and she's ready to see me as soon as I make the phone call. And so they were really good at not only doing the exam, but also providing all the information to make sure those folks go and get seen further. And just so you know, this was a screen that provided a referral. There was no diagnosis done, but based on what they found, they gave information for those that were there to take it to their primary care and get what they need done. So from the 140, We had 86 members with no findings, and that's good. We had 35 referrals for future, or for, questionable things that they found. We had 27 biopsy referrals where that needs to be taken off and looked at. And we had 2 melanoma findings. And as far as I'm concerned, 1 is wonderful, 2 is wonderful as well. And I don't want to say that like it's a good thing, but it's a great thing that we caught it. So hopefully those folks, they go get themselves taken care of. I'm sure they will. We know nothing about that other than just the numbers. So that's what happened this weekend. This is just one of many things that we're working on. Matter of fact, since last week, or since yesterday, I do believe, I got a call from someone from, I think they were from UCLA, and they want to come and do esophageal cancer screening. Now, this one, they're doing it for free as well, and they handle all the scheduling, all that stuff. And so that's to be determined, and I'd like to go over that with the powers that be and see what that looks like. Now, when I will tell you, when they talked about what it takes to check for esophageal, yeah, I said, well, we're not going to tell that to the members until they get there. Oh, we didn't tell you. And it was a shock in the skin cancer when they said break down to your skivvies, and I was like, excuse me. But they didn't. They spared no expense. This one here is a little more in depth with something going down your throat with a balloon, and I said, we may not get 150 for that one, but we'll probably try. So moving forward, this big push, and now that I have the microphone, I appreciate the time. Our wellness exams and moving more towards a more robust wellness exam, I think is very, very highly needed. The cancer screenings with ultrasound, advanced blood screenings, all these things I do believe is the future for the health and wellness department and for the best thing for our members. So that's something that I'd like to look more at. And then the things we already have going on with our mobility training, our wellness center and we talked about the community, and because I'm a team of one, I have really relied on the general public and the SMEs out there that have businesses that I've made connections with businesses that are doing wellness to provide more for our members. Wellness centers that have everything from infrared, sub-infrared tables to hyperbaric chambers. And I'm really trying to push our members towards those things that really accent more rest and recovery, regeneration, obviously nutritional components, and to drop down the low-level fight or flight issues that we have here at the district, as well as other districts and departments as well. So that's all I have. If there's any questions, please, I'd like to hear them.
Questions for the coach?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. It's great to see that we're being proactive and
Yes.
For prevention for our employees.
Absolutely.
Great thing.
Yeah, thank you. And it's an honor to do it. And just one last thing before I leave, we talk about like Bobby over in safety and all the PPE and I say that the safety division protects the firefighter from the outside in. The health and wellness protects them from the inside out. And so that's always been my goal since I've been here. And I appreciate the ability or the chance to do it. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Any other questions? Chief, back to you.
Thank you, Coach, and welcome once again to our new members. And that's the end of my report unless you have questions for me.
Questions for the chief? Thank you very much. We'll move on to ops report. Chief Mitchell.
Thank you, President Gould. I will bring up Chief Farika to continue to focus on our members to talk about the shift commander spotlight tonight. So, Chief.
Thank you. President Gould, board members, Chief House, colleagues, and guests. I'm Joe Furica, Assistant Chief in the Operations Branch, currently assigned as the A-Shift Commander. Tonight, I would like to highlight the level of professionalism and training that we all expect from our members. On February 10th, Engine 110 and Medic 105 responded to a report of an unresponsive male. When Engine 110 arrived, they found an unresponsive male on the ground being assisted by 3 bystanders. Tonight, I have the crew from Engine 110 here to introduce themselves and tell you a bit more about this incident. Captain Ross.
Thank you, Chief Eureka. Thank you, Board. Thank you, Chief House. As the chief indicated, we were dispatched to an unresponsive person. En route, we were informed that we had bystander CPR being conducted prior to our arrival. Upon our arrival, we did witness 2 individuals actively engaged in bystander CPR, which appeared very effective from our standpoint. Later found out that there were actually 3 that were involved prior to our arrival in total. The crew initiated patient contact or patient care, confirmed that this individual was in fact in cardiac arrest, initiated ALS interventions, and prior to transporting the individual or loading the individual into the ambulance, we were having a full conversation with an alert and oriented person. The point that the crew and I would like to highlight is the fact that the difference was made by the fact that we had people, bystanders, without a duty to act, taking action based on recommendations that are presented to the public every day from many sources on how to save a life in the event of a cardiac arrest. And they were performing this function flawlessly. We had the fortune of being the crew that responded, but as the district expects, we were doing what we're supposed to do. So the difference was made prior to our arrival. And I believe the outcome is successful still to this point. Thank you.
We'll call the rest of your crew up there for a moment, please.
You're having chest compressions done.
Firefighter paramedic Jason Valenzuela was the primary paramedic treating, and then engineer Aaron Wham was also involved as well.
At this moment, I'd like to have Chief Fernicki come forward.
As maybe some of you have seen in EMS, we've had the pleasure to recognize some of our crews with an EMS challenge coin for EMS excellence. And so tonight I would like to do just that for this crew. You heard about the call, so I'll spare some of that right up, but EMS excellent is not just the outcome. And as Captain Ross just said, that from the time the public recognized the need, perform CPR, and our crew arriving, a lot of times we get recognized and we do our part in our role in delivering the energy and having the monitor and all the tools. But it really was from recognition to the end. But our crew being organized, having 3 paramedics on scene, and the function they did, I don't want them to downplay the role that they played because it was significant. We review the calls and look at the monitor and everything they did. So I'll take a minute of your time and read this commendation for them. As most EMTs and paramedics know, survival from cardiac arrest in the out-of-hospital setting is a rare event. Many die suddenly due to the sudden cessation of spontaneous organized rhythm. Few of these patients arrive at the hospital with a perfusing rhythm, and even fewer are discharged back home. Competent and timely pre-hospital care gives those few patients a much greater chance at survival and makes our effort in all cardiac arrest cases worthwhile and meaningful. Early recognition by the public to activate the 911 system, the fire dispatcher, and the team approach made the difference. As recognition of your excellent performance in this emergent event, we would like to award you this challenge coin to commemorate your efforts and to serve as a reminder to you and your commitment to an outstanding patient care that you provided to save this man's life. Congratulations on a job well done.
Thank you, guys. And just so you know, Engine 110 and their crew were only one part of this life-saving effort that resulted in a successful outcome for the patient. Medic 105 and the 3 civilians that were also involved in this will be recognized at a later time. Just timing wise, they were not available to be here tonight. So we will make sure that the rest of the people that were instrumental in this will be acknowledged. Yeah, hey, Chief Fernicki, can we have you come back up front, please?
Oh, he's doing his photo op, media opportunity. You guys want to do it in front or?
We want to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So All right. Obviously, I can see it on your faces, the immense feeling of pride beaming from all of us. And also, I would just like to Captain Ross's humility in redirecting the recognition back to the members of the public. I mean, the leadership is incredible. I can just, and I'm almost at a loss for words. I'm really proud, as usual. But I would also like to continue the surprise recognition. Just a question, or just a review of history. What was happening back in February of 2004, 20 years ago? The top song in the country charts was Alan Jackson's Remember When. Top movie grossing in that year was Shrek 2. The $1 Million Baby won the Academy Award for Best Picture. George W. Bush was our president. Arnold Schwarzenegger was our governor. And Metro Fire was lucky to see the hiring of Assistant Chief John Rednicki. So I am proud to present Chief Rednicki to his surprise, his 20-year employment pin here tonight in front of the board. Okay, and that ends the operations report.
Chief, don't go anywhere. Director
I just
Wood
had
has
a,
a
thank you,
question.
Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question. A few years back, we used to do sidewalk CPR at events, and I haven't seen that for a number of years. And I was just wondering if we're
Yeah,
gonna bring those
great-
back or if they're.
Great question. We obviously, our CERT folks have been doing a great job at a lot of our community events. They bring out and do those presentations at different events. I know we used to advertise them more. I don't think Chief Wilborn is here. No, he's not here though. So we will, I had thought about that the last station tour also. I think that's an incredibly, obviously beneficial example of the things that we can do to be better for the public. And I fully support, and we'll look into bringing those back on a more regular basis, just focused on that. So
That's
thank you.
great.
Director.
Thanks.
All right.
Chief, what an awesome story. Can't imagine what it'd been like. Compressions 1 minute, A&O the next. That's a, you gotta be there for that stuff. That's incredible. And some of those who have practiced medicine know just how shocking it would be to the providers. Like, what did you just say? You know, and I just gave you X. And so that's pretty cool. Good story. Administrative report from Chief Bailey. One of you is going to have to do it, or we're going to move on.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair, board members, Fire Chief House, colleagues, members of the public. Mr. Chair, you gave, you kind of led into this already, so maybe you tipped my hand. But I did, what I wanted to present here is have the finance staff all come up. We do have, this was not the night of the ACFR, the financial audit report. And typically, as you recall, Mr. Chair, like we do talk about the awards that we received at that time. This year, there's just more awards to talk about. So we're doing it as kind of a separate agenda item and just inserting into the admin report. So to take them one by one, this is the with the annual comprehensive financial report. It's the one with all the numbers on it. So this is the annual comprehensive financial report. We received it for our last submission for 21-22. So we're missing a button that will, when we receive it, it'll go there. This was the 9th year in a row. You can tell by the number of buttons, there's 8. We need to add a 9th. So the ACFR is a group effort across the division. So I just want to introduce the contributors here: Damon Chung, Milton Mora, Marie Jones, Tara Mailer, Ron Epidrat, our controller. Come on back, Sarah. Sarah Ortiz, Darren Guerrero, Emily Brown, excuse me, and Robin Almeida. So this is most of the finance team that all contributed to the ACFR and have done so for 9 years. So it's to their credit to the many years of success there. And before I move on, just one piece of information. When we did the ACFR presentation, it was a new auditor this year. So I just want to point that out, as you had a new auditor that provided a clean opinion. So you essentially got a fresh look on your financials and got a clean opinion. So I think it's worth recognizing now too. So I know that we're short on time, so I'm going to move quickly into the next awards too. Sticking with the Government Finance Officers Association of America Awards, we also received the CAR Award recently for our 21-22 CAR Community Annual Report, which I know many of you use and hand out. It's an excellent tool to introduce the department. Special, also a team contribution, but mainly want to recognize Ron and Marie for that. So they're mostly putting that together. So thank you. And then moving on. and I'm talking quickly, but there's two more awards. These are new awards, newer awards from the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers. And they are, the first one is the capital plan. We submitted our capital plan the first year, last year, for the 22-23 capital improvement program plan, and we received that award. And that is also a team effort, but also we do that with economic development. So I want to recognize Jeff Fry and Aaron Castleberry as well. So that's a success we've had there. And then this is our first time receiving it. And then finally, we received the California Society, the CSMFO Operating Budget Award for our budget. We submit the final budget, and we've received the Excellence Award last year. The prior year, we got a meritorious recognition. So we got the higher recognition last year. I couldn't resist a couple of statistics on the Excellence Award for operating budget. The minimum score to get the award is 70. The average score was 86, and we received a score of 99. So with that, I thank the finance team. That concludes the presentation.
Hold on, don't go
Hey
anywhere.
there.
You need to talk to all of these groups and stop with the boring plaques and get trophies. Because like at universities, they have all the big team trophies in the middle of the facility. You guys need a whole hallway with just a big
You can find them in
glass
our
full of
hallway.
Trophies. Like I've said it before, I think you people are so incredibly special to this district because you make it easy to sleep at night and to be an elected. When I raise my hand and swear that we're going to keep a financially stable organization, it's nothing to do with me. It's all you guys, every bit of it. So we just can't thank you enough, and keep it up, but get a trophy.
Let's see what we can do. Thank you.
Chief,
Thank you.
you good?
All
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Very good job. I saw Deputy or Chief Wagaman there. I'm sure there's no way he can match up to that unless he's bringing Barbie Love. Oh, he is.
Good evening, President Gould, directors, Chief House and staff. Initially, no report, but Chief Law definitely wanted to bring in a recent event to your attention. So I'd like to pass the microphone over to our Fire Marshal, Chief Law.
Thank you for your patience with me, Director Gould. I will keep this brief, but I think it is relevant to your constituents and our community based on the amount of concern we've been hearing from our constituents about the problem with illegal fireworks in the community. Yesterday afternoon, our arson investigators and fire inspectors were able to work with the sheriff's office and the county of Sacramento and go to a business in South Sacramento on Sky Parkway in a strip mall. There was actually a hair accessories business that was selling illegal fireworks right at the front door. Those fireworks did have Safe and Sane seals on them. However, they were all counterfeit. We were able to confiscate those fireworks, get them off of the street so they're not going to be in the community. And I wanted to bring that to your awareness. We're working with our PIO to put out some more information about that, which went out earlier today. And before the meeting started, I was communicating with CBS to get that story out there and the word that we are not going to tolerate illegal fireworks in our community anymore. Thank you.
Nicely done. You gotta love these kind of things. All right, let's move on to Local 522's report. Definitely doesn't look like Sean at all.
Good evening, President Gould, Board of Directors, Chief House, and guest Pete Votava, Local 522 Union Director. First off, I want to thank Chief Mitchell for your presentation tonight with the service delivery. We're gonna meet next week with Sean Scollard, and we're going to come up with a plan to continue to move this ball forward and implement these plans and converting MMPs, implementing first squads and so on and so forth. And in that, we do believe it's imperative that we try to come up with a hiring plan and overhire what we need historically. Along the way, we lose folks, whether it's the 10 shift ride along, the academy, whatever it is. Our goal is to take the big red if staffing can be maintained and turn that black and no longer have a big if. So we're going to work collaboratively with Chief Mitchell and try to keep that thing moving forward. Let's see, we completed our side letter. Thank you to Melissa and her HR team for completing the side letter for the comms tech folks into the ASP unit. We're working with HR on some language revisions for the sick leave policy and the PP policy. And let's see what else. 522 and admin, as you know, we're working collaboratively with the Honor Guard and plans for Anthony Benalicia's celebration of life coming up on March 2nd, as well as the movement of him down locally on the 28th. So fit for the day, we are canceling our labor management meeting that was made for that day for that event. So and then finally, trying to keep it short and sweet so you can get into closed session. As you know, Chief House, myself, and Battalion Chief Cole did visit Phoenix on the 15th to the 17th. We met with Division Chief Joanne Caldwell, who you got a little bit of history from Chief House. To say the least, I think it was an interesting visit, but it was also very nice to see how we operate as a district and what we have in place currently. It's just like Chief said, in a different format. Arizona work rules and California work rules, as we know, are very, very different. So their reasonings for doing some of the things they do are very different than what our vision and goal is long-term. So we're going to continue to meet Chief Cole and Chief House and myself to continue to put a plan together from the things we did learn while we were there and the things that we know today. And like Chief House alluded, coincidentally, on the same weekend we were there, Coach conducted his skin test screening, and I can tell by the looks on all of your faces when you heard not only the thirst for that from our membership, that it filled in 20 minutes and that he put it out again and it immediately filled, but also the results from that. Zero is the number, and anything other than zero is staggering and it's uncomfortable. And so the 300,000 that we have in place with our MOU and working collaboratively to move this thing forward. And if it's cancer screening that we begin with, it's obvious that the thirst and the need for that with our members is there. They want that, and they want it sooner than later. And we need to keep our members healthy and longevity for themselves, the family, the district, and their communities they serve. So looking forward to working further with Chief House and Chief Cole and putting a program in place and a long-term vision. And I'll definitely keep you in the loop and updated as things progress on that. So any other questions? Otherwise, I'm contained.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We'll now move on to committee and delegate reports. I have no report from the executive committee. We'll go to Com Center JPA. AC Green, don't see him. He's not here. He loses out.
Yep, no report.
Okay. We'll now move on. Finance and Audit Committee, Director Jones.
Thank you. The Finance and Audit Committee met this evening, and we received a very good comprehensive a report up through December 31st, as well as a preview for our preliminary budget, or mid-year budget review. And that will be coming to the full board shortly or soon, and so we'll be able to take a look at that. Two key takeaways. One is that we continue to analyze our PPGEMT revenue and balance our budget according to the revenues received. That's very important. We're keeping a good, staff is keeping an excellent monitoring system in place for that potential revenue. That's excellent. And the second one is that we are within $500,000 of balancing our projected budget with a mid-year review. That's a very, very, very small amount based on our entire budget. So that's excellent news. The projections were almost right on in terms of all those big numbers. It's excellent, excellent outcome. On our sheet here, it's, I beg to differ, but I believe our next meeting should be scheduled for March 21st at either 5 or 5:30, depending on content. Want to see everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Costa,
Yeah,
Policy
yeah,
Committee.
I'm watching you.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 14th.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on to board members' questions and comments. Director Saylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no comments tonight.
Thank you. Director Weber. You're up.
I'll save my comments for the next meeting, which will be very, very long. My comments will be tonight, nothing.
Just giving us that heads up. Director Costa.
Thank you. No comments.
This is excellent. Director Jones.
Thanks to everyone. All the presentations spoke for themselves. Finished.
Thank you very much for that, Director Sheets. Go.
No comment.
No comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, last thing. We're going into closed session with an expensive attorney. You all need to go home. No one stay. This meeting's suspended. Robert, please report out actions in closed session.
All right, we're back on the record. The board met in closed session under the closed session agenda. Item number 1 was to consider the matter of a workers' compensation settlement authority for Carl Powell and the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. The board voted unanimously to approve a settlement of that workers' compensation claim. Next, number 2, the board met in conference with legal counsel concerning pending litigation, which was the labor arbitration involving employee Yuri Torres. The board voted unanimously to approve a settlement of that action. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Members of the board, any other questions or comments? Okay, this meeting's adjourned.